Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm your host, Matsurugi, and today we're going to be looking at Season of the Malignant and what they've released in terms of what's coming with Season 1 for Diablo 4. So, thanks for watching. If you like my content, please like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you like my content, check me out on YouTube Live and Twitch Live, usually daily for live streams where I do commentary, video games, etc. as I stream. So let's get right into it. So the season, first and foremost, is going to start on July 20th, 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. For me, that's going to be 11 a.m. Let's see. Investigate the Malignance with Cormond in a new quest. So basically, this is the enemies we're going to fight. The Malignant. They are some form of monster that was bred, created, whatever, by Lilith before she was decimated by us. And it appears that this is the reason why it's coming after the campaign, is because it's something that manifests after she's been defeated. So basically, you meet Cormond in Cryovision, and then from there you would do the quest line with him and find out what's going on with the Malignant, etc. You can, next is transmute Malignance into Vengeance. So you can slay partly corrupted enemies. We've seen this before, a type of Malignant monster, and they'll drop a Malignant heart. You then use the Cage of Binding, which you obtain from Cormond, to do a ritual, and that turns it into a fully corrupted enemy. They respawn with a new group of enemies also coming along with them that are also corrupted. You defeat them, and they drop a Malignant heart of a relevant type. So there is 32 Malignant hearts. They fall into 4 categories, each corresponding with a color and unique keyword. So Vicious is orange / offensive power, Brutal is blue and defensive power, Devious is pink and utility power, and Wrathful is black super. So defeated Malignant monsters will drop a heart that corresponds to the monster's color. The colors of each heart also correspond to special Malignant sockets, so we know this. Amulets, rings, and amulets and rings, they have a specific color socket that corresponds to the type of gem you can put in there. Wrathful ones, thankfully, they are able to go into any socket. So I suspect that the ones people are going to be wanting to get overall are going to be the Wrathful ones, depending on how good those powers are. So you can create and salvage Malignant hearts. Basically, you gain Malignant hearts, you can break them down and turn them into Ichor. Each normal one, so it says, Ichor is a resource that allows for the creation and upgrade of Malignant hearts and can also be harvested from lesser Malignant monsters. By the way, you do this salvaging with Cormond, wherever it is that he ends up being. Here's like a picture of his encampment. It looks like it's in Act 2 somewheres. So salvaging each Vicious, Brutal, and Devious heart will provide 5 to 15 Ichor. That's probably based on what tier the Malignant heart is, and then Wrathful hearts provide 2 to 5 each of all other heart types. So it looks like, unfortunately, you can't create Wrathful ones, but it costs 35 Ichor of the other 2 primary colored hearts to create a specific one. So for example, if you wanted to create a Vicious heart, you need 35 Brutal and 35 Devious Ichor. In return, you would receive a random Vicious heart that scales to the level of your character, and it'll always be either class agnostic, either i.e. general, or it'll be a class specific for your class Malignant heart that you get. Next, it says, you know, they have provide a bunch of bonuses, etc. And it says the stats you see reflect what a level 20 character would receive as a drop. As your seasonal character grows in level, so too will the power of the Malignant hearts that drop for them. Unless specified, the heart can be acquired by playing in any world tier in the seasonal realm. So that's kind of cool. You could farm for them in world tier 1 to 4. So general ones. The Paikana, vicious, offensive. Critical strikes electrically charge the enemy for 0.75 to 2.5 seconds, causing lightning to arc between them and any other charged enemies, dealing 68 to 136 lightning damage. That's, again, for a level 20 character, is the basis they're using. So I wonder if that's when they estimate that you'll really start to collect these items, is about level 20 as well. So that's interesting. That could give you a bit of AoE, for especially for melee characters early on. That could really help with cutting down larger groups of enemies. The Dark Dance, vicious, offensive, world tier 3. So it looks like they're going through it's offensive, defensive, and then utility, and then the Wrathful supers is the thing that they're doing. So the Dark Dance, vicious, offensive, world tier 3. So that's when this one can drop every 5 seconds while wait, didn't it say as your seasonal character grows in level, unless specified, the heart can be acquired by playing in any world tier. Okay, so in this case, this one specifies world tier 3 for the Dark Dance. Every 5 seconds while above 60% life, core skills cost 68 to 51 life instead of your primary resource. Skills that consume life deal 10 to 20% increased damage. Quite the trade-off. I don't know how much I would want to be using that. Tempting Fate is also in orange or vicious. Offensive world tier 3 is when it drops. You gain 40 to 60% critical strike damage, but your non-critical strikes deal 20 to 15% less damage. So if you're going to use that, you're going to want to be doing have a really high critical strike chance before you go using it. The Lionheart, brutal defensive, so that's on this one can be found on any world tier. You gain 10% barrier generation. You heal 3 to 7 life per second while you have an active barrier. Might be a nice regen ability at higher levels. Revenge, brutal defensive world tier 3. 10 to 20% of incoming damage is instead suppressed. When you use a defensive subterfuge or macabre skill, all suppressed damage is amplified by 250% and explodes, dealing up to 1360 to 22,040 fire damage to nearby enemies. That's interesting. That could be pretty good. And that's a brutal one. So that's yeah, but it depends on, I guess, how long you have to time your defensives with that. That sounds cool. Prudent Heart, brutal defensive world tier 3. You become immune, so no damage, for 2 to 4 seconds after you lose more than 20% life in a single hit. This effect can only occur once every 110 seconds. I hope that time can come down, because that's a long time to be wasting a socket on that. Otherwise, it'd be kind of cool. Determination, devious, utility. And these are all general ones, by the way. So, determination, devious, utility, resource draining effects are 40 to 50% less effective. In addition, gain 3 to 8% increased resource generation. So, I wonder if it doesn't specify if it's from enemies or if it's you using resource. Because that drains your resource, right? When you use, say, like Twisting Blades. So I wonder if that would be, it would mean that what the cost of your ability is 40 to 50% less while you have this gem socketed, or is it going to be from enemies? So resource burn. How often do you find, if it's just when enemies are hitting you, how often are you going to be using or having to deal with resource burn? Right? It's not, yeah, I don't know how useful that could be. Especially since you can't like unsocket the gem the way you can normal gems, right? The Malignant hearts are not unsocketable. You replace them instead. So I don't know how useful this kind of thing is. Retaliation, devious, utility, world tier 3. Deal 510 to 680 fire damage to surrounding enemies whenever a crowd control effect is removed from them. So that could be interesting, right? You deal this damage whenever you strip a crowd control effect from you. So like you could use Unstoppable to get rid of crowd control. Rogue, for instance, if you have the Shadow Step power on your boots, You just shadow step, shadow step, shadow step. If you need to, you could use concealment to just continually take this off. Um, as long as you're obviously it's when you get crowd controlled, so but you could be doing that damage all the time. It's basically free damage with something you'd be doing anyway. This would definitely be more useful and more powerful with characters like rogues who combining again the shadow step power and for more shadow step charges and cooldown and stuff, plus synergy as as an aspect and concealment. Together, those three things would give you a lot of damage out of this, I think. The calculated devious utility world tier 3. After spending 150 to 200 of your primary resource, your next attack stuns enemies for 2 seconds. I don't know how useful this would be for something like maybe a sorcerer or something where you, or a necromancer where you, or a druid, I guess, that they're really the ones who do lots of big AoE stuff. This I could see being pretty useful to them, but it's kind of 150 to 200. Maybe this number comes down and maybe the stun goes up or something, right? The Malignant Pact, Wrathful Super. Cycle through a Malignant bonus every 20 kills. So vicious. So this is what's cool about this is you could put this Wrathful one in, and every 20 seconds it's going to give you, like, I don't know where it starts, 20% attack speed, then it'll change to I don't know if this is the order it'll rotate in. I hope it is. I hope it's not randomized. It doesn't say it's randomized, so I'm going to assume it's the vicious, then devious, then brutal. So gain 20% attack speed, then devious's core and basic skills have a 15% chance to fully restore your primary resource. That's the same as the lucky hit ability on a lot of gloves, and specifically the Fists of Fate. So you wouldn't need the Fists of Fate to do this anymore, and you could have better gloves. As for instance, anybody that I know, the rogue, I've been using Fists of Fate on my rogue, so this is mainly the primary reason why I do that. There is like stun and stuff like that, and what is it, daze on the gloves for lucky hit, but to have this, or you could combine this with the gloves, so you're just constantly full energy, right? Brutal, every 21 seconds, gain a barrier absorbing 85 to 102 damage. So this would be nice because it would mean that you're not needing to put on the protector power or protector aspect. I keep calling aspects power. So just to clarify, if I say power, I mean aspect, etc. So creeping death, wrathful super. Your damage over time effects are increased by 30 to 40% for each different crowd control effect on the target. So this would be unstoppable monsters and staggered bosses instead take 110 to 130% increased damage from your damage over time effects. So, oh man, rogues, oh boy, poison imbued rogues, and they've done some nasty stuff to improve poison imbue this patch. So they made it so that you can apply poison imbue with a legendary aspect on puncture. So that's one instance. Then you get your actual poison imbue. There is I think it's a malignant heart that specifically makes you trigger all of your aspect or your poison imbue or your imbuements at once. Just a moment. Cats, man. Anyways, so you get the new legendary aspect that grants poison imbuement at 100 to 150% potency to puncture. Then on top of that, you can have, your actual imbuement skill. Then you have this other one for this Malignant Heart for rogues that triggers all. You just have a chance on hit to trigger all 3 imbuements at once, which is pretty wild. But either way, it'd be like triggering your poison imbuement. That'd be the thing that primarily you'd be, unless you spec. I think you can spec your shadow damage for shadow imbue to maybe do damage over time. I don't remember. Either way, like this is going to be, whew, man, like this is at the very least going to really propel poison imbue rogues really hard. Okay, the Barber, Wrathful, Super World Tier 3. Critical strikes and all subsequent damage within 2 to 4 seconds is absorbed by your target. Then, the absorbed damage erupts onto surrounding enemies. Stored damage is increased by 10% per second. So I guess they take the damage. Do they not? Do they take the damage as well? And then after 2 to 4 seconds, it's absorbed by it's channeled outwards, like explodes away from them, erupts onto surrounding enemies, like it's an AoE, right? So, stored damage is increased by 10% per second, so it could be up to 40% increased damage on a critical strike. That's pretty wild. Especially since you can vulnerable damage, do vulnerable damage, apply vulnerability, get your vulnerable damage, crit on top of that, and your critical hit damage, and then all that damage will be increased by 10 to 40%, I guess. Okay, so Barbarian, starting off with class specific, focused rage, vicious offensive. So it looks like there's one color or one type of each for each class. So after spending 100 to 60 fury, within 2 seconds, your next non-basic skill's critical strike chance is increased by 20 to 30%. Very nice. Resurgent Life, brutal defensive. While below 40 to 60% life, you receive 50 to 60% more healing from all sources. I don't know. There's already stuff like that in the game. I don't see people typically taking such things. Punishing speed, although the amount is better. Punishing speed, devious utility. Your skills have a 20 to 30% chance to knock down all enemies for 1.25 seconds when that skill's attack speed is higher than 35 to 20%. I mean, that's kind of imitating rogues, but rogues can just kind of do that far more often with like their poison trap and with Fists of Fate. I don't know if there's barbs running around with Fists of Fate, so if they were, then this is and you just need to get attack speed, which is fairly easy. Ignoring pain, Wrathful, Super World Tier 4. Incoming damage has a 5 to 15% chance of being ignored, and instead healing you for 17 to 68. And obviously, this amount is going to increase. I don't know if this range for the percentage is going to increase or not. I hope it does. Because this is, again, supposedly based off of a level 20 character. So hopefully this range, for the chance to have this at prog, increases as well as the amount that would heal you. Again, this is kind of similar to, like, having Fists of Fate. This is a power that's also, or an affix that's on Fists of Fate as well. Just 1 second, sorry. Alright, so let's check out the old Druid boys. The Moonrage, Vicious Offensive. Kills have a 5% chance to summon a wolf companion to your side for 20 to 30 seconds. In addition, gain +3 to wolves. Ooh. Now, wolves seem to be functioning a lot better now, so at least compared to when I played them in the beta. This could be good. But it's a 5% chance, and it's on kills, so you better be able to kill shit fast. I wonder if it'll keep, like, say you could kill things really, really fast. Say you get, like, 10 kills in a row, and you every kill is a 5% chance. Like, maybe you get lucky and you proc it, like, 5 times. Can you only get 1 wolf? Or can you get multiple extra wolves? That's pretty cool. And then, of course, they're going to benefit from whatever your ranks and passives are for your wolf skill. The Agitated Winds, brutal defensive. When 8 to 13 close enemies automatically cast... Wait. Okay, so I'm assuming when you're close to this, to 8 to 13, why the... It's a weird number, 8 to 13 close enemies. Basically, when you're close to 8 to 13 enemies, you automatically cast Cyclone Armor. This cannot occur more than once every 10 to 20 seconds. So that could be good. Inexorable Force, Devious Utility. Up to 30 to 50 distant enemies are pulled toward you while you have an ultimate skill active. Ooh, that could be really good. Oh, man. So minimum, you're going to be able to pull up to like 30 enemies straight to you. The Unconstrained Beast. Wrathful Super World Tier 4. When you are hit with a stun, freeze, or knockdown effect, there is a 40 to 60% chance to automatically activate Grizzly Rage for 3 seconds. Oh, cool. So even if you're not a... and there's a... I think there's a legendary or unique aspect that transforms... Instead of you turning into a werebear or dire werebear, you turn into a dire werewolf. So either way, like, to get this for free is pretty cool. And it's a socket, right? It's not an aspect on your items, so that's pretty cool. Necromancer, the Sacrilegious, Vicious Offensive. Walking near a corpse automatically activates an equipped corpse skill every second, dealing 40 to 30% reduced damage. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Like, again, you're taking control of my character away from me in terms of what I can do. I don't like that. Especially since it's dealing reduced damage. Why would you do that? That's just shitty. Oh my god, Blizzard. If it did increase 30 to 40% damage, that would be better. But even then, it's... Because I don't want, like, even if there's an overabundance of corpses, I want the ability to control when I'm using those corpses, because sometimes I want to save them for various things, right? So whether it's to res guy, this just reminds me of the power where the aspect where you when you use your blood mist, you automatically detonate corpses around you as if corpse explosion. This is what that's reminiscent of, and that aspect is better than this. The decrepit, because at least then it's only when you use your blood mist. This is just all the time if you haven't socketed. I don't like that. You, again, no control. The Decrepit Aura. Brutal defensive. When at least 5 enemies are near you, gain an aura that automatically curses surrounding enemies with Decrepify. Ooh, this one now. This is really good, because then you don't have to have Decrepify on your bar. But you could take the passives for it. 3 skill points. Boom. Right? And then put your points into somewhere else. That's pretty cool. Surrounding enemies. So that, but that's another issue with that though, is being in range. You'd maybe still want it on you so that, or on your bar then, unless you're diving right in the middle of enemies, but you're a necromancer. Do you really want to be doing that as a necro? Man, that could be brutal. Frozen Terror, Devious Utility. Lucky Hit. Up to a 10 to 20% chance of inflicting fear for 2.5 seconds. Feared enemies are chilled for 20% every second. So that could be really good. Right, you get that lucky hit, you fear them, they run away, they're getting chilled 20%, so that's 5 seconds. If they're, and then they're gonna die. I don't know how good that is though, because the whole point is to, they're only feared for 2.5 seconds. So, I mean, how long are enemies going to live for while you have this going, right? To get them to be frozen. That would be ultimately, I think, what you would want to do with this, is to freeze enemies with it. Because it's effectively just like stunning somebody. And the Great Feast for a Wrathful Super World Tier 4. Each minion drains... Oh, that sucks that it's minions. Each minion drains 1 to 2 essence per second, but deals 50 to 75% increased damage. With no minions, this bonus applies to you and drains 5 essence per second. So, oh, this is... Why can't it be only when you enter combat? So you're always going to be entering combat, in other words, with, like, no freaking essence. No essence. I don't think this is good. Like, yeah, you'll get up to 50 to 75% increased damage. It works for minion builds or sacrifice builds like my Blood Lance or Bone Spear. But drains 5 essence per second. Why is it worse with no minions than when you have minions? Like, well, actually, no, sorry. Each minion drains 1 to 2. So that's actually going to be worse than this, where you just lose 5 essence per second. But like the moment you're not in combat, if you're not constantly pushing combat, you have to go to town or whatever, you have to travel somewhere, you're gonna lose your essence, right? Unless you take that, maybe you the meta will be you go to town, you take that freaking item off, the ring, amulet, whatever, while you're in town, till you go to do something where you're gonna fight. That way you're not losing essence. And then I don't know how this is going to work in terms of gaining essence when you're in combat and stuff, how much they're going to conflict with each other. It might make doing things really difficult. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Rogue. This one sounds fun. Cluster munitions. Vicious offensive. Lucky hit. You have up to a 20% chance. That's pretty high. So that's a 1 in 5 chance to launch 3 stun grenades that deal 26 to 32 physical damage and stun enemies for 0.5 seconds. So this is reminiscent again of there's 2 aspects. One is when you use evade or shadow step, you leave behind a cluster of stun grenades that do the same thing. And then the other is when you leave concealment, you leave behind stun grenades. So you could have this gem, the shadow step / evade power, and then also the one for concealment. So with, what is it? Is it 4, 6? No, up to 6, 4, 5, 5. Yeah, 5 evades at max evade charges, plus your shadow step, which if you've got the shadow step power on your boots, plus the synergy aspect, you can shadow step a lot. Also, it means you'll be able to use concealment a lot more. That's why I use it, because I like concealment over dash. It grants me another form of unstoppable, and then the whole time you're using those 3 things, you're dropping stun grenades. Could be really good, maybe even against bosses. Might be the easiest way for rogues to apply to break bosses' stagger bars. I don't know. Trickery. Brutal. Defensive. When you use a subterfuge skill, leave behind an unstable shadow decoy trap that taunts enemies. Get off my screen. The shadow decoy trap will explode after 6 seconds, dealing 680 to 1020 shadow damage. Cannot occur more than once every 5 seconds. So basically you could, for 1 second, have 2 of these up and kind of chain them together when you, depending on how often you're able to use a subterfuge skill. How useful will this be? Well, that depends on how well does it taunt and draw enemies in. Right? If it draws enemies in and keeps them in despite you hitting them from kind of behind or whatever, flanking them, etc., with your actual character, then if it does that and it does it well, that's good. If not, then it's something they're going to have to fix during the season, which I would prefer to see them not have to do these kind like fixes and stuff, rectify issues. It'd be better if they just have them working correctly. Then again, we don't know how much internal testing they do for such things, so we'll just have to wait and see. Luckily, only 1 day away now, because it's actually the 19th when I'm recording this. So, the clip shot, devious utility, lucky hit, up to a 20 to 40% chance for your cutthroat skills to slow by 40% for 3 seconds, and your marksman skills to knock back enemies. That's pretty good. I think that'd be a pretty good ability, considering the lucky hit is really high. And what is it? Shadow Step, I think, has a 100% lucky hit chance. They didn't change that, I don't think, in the I don't remember seeing that being changed in the patch notes. So you can just if you can Shadow Step a lot, you can basically slow all the time. If you have Fist of Fate, you can slow all the time, etc., which is pretty good. And your marksman skills, and that's a pretty big slow, 40%. So against bosses, again, this would make it real easy to apply this stuff to bosses, stagger them, etc. Now the big one, the Vile Apothecary, Wrathful Super World Tier 4. Your attacks have a 5 to 15% chance to apply all imbuement effects at 40 to 50% of normal potency. So, I mean, it's a passive application of all your implements. This again is reminiscent of the Death Trap build. I think there's a thing where you can have it like apply all. It has all imbuements, or no. That's the amulet, the unique amulet. That when you use the Rain of Arrows ultimate or whatever, it gets the effects of all imbuements at once. So I don't know how good that is. I mean, that ultimate really needs a lot of work because I hear it's very similar to the Rogue's dismount ability, where it basically doesn't fucking hit anything. So kind of useless for an ultimate. Alright, Sorcerer. Tal Rasha, Vicious Offensive. For each unique element you deal damage with, you deal 7 to 12% increased damage for 3 to 10 seconds. So that's kind of cool, because that would incentivize you to do, at the bare minimum, you can at least do 2, right? Like fire and ice, fire and lightning, etc. With the enchantment for Firebolt, it always ensures you have burning. So maybe this would incentivize, at least during the season, people to try and round out their builds to do more types of damage. Maybe people will be able to figure out ways to get like 3, right, or more. You could, because fire, lightning, ice is the sorceress's thing, right? So that'd be cool. Spellbreaking, Brutal Defensive. After taking elemental damage, gain 20 to 40% resistance to that element for 5 seconds. Okay, let's talk about this for a sec. This sucks. Okay, Blizzard, your resistances are broke. You haven't fixed them yet. The patch notes have nothing to do about fixing the equations that make up how resistances function in the game. Fix that before adding anything like this in the game. Because is the resistance problem going to be fixed quickly after the release of Season 1? I don't think so. I don't have faith that it will anyways. So, because it seems like it's a really big fundamental problem of that system. So, and nobody stacks elemental resistances for a reason, because it's broken. So, except for the stuff that they're forced to take, like a random affix on a pair of pants or something, and the guaranteed affixes on rings and amulets, right? So, Spite, Devious Utility. My recommendation, don't use this. Don't use this spell breaking, okay? Especially since we know from testing, for instance, a person to check out will be Ginger Gaming Mentor. He has a video on just how much stacking high amounts of resistance actually does, and it's like a couple percent on the stats themselves in your listing. 20 to 40% will give you nothing. It'll give you 1 to 2 points or whatever on your resistance. So it's not worth it. That's why nobody uses the resistance gems, because they're garbage. Spite, Devious Utility. When you are afflicted with a crowd control effect, there is a 20 to 40% chance that the same enemy and enemies around you are also afflicted with the same effect for 3 seconds. So, as a weak need sorcerer, this is really good, because now it sucks that it's only upwards of 40% chance that it works, but still, in those instances where you're not mobile, or you can't be mobile, or you can't kite, whatever it is, and you get crowd controlled, this will, because it doesn't say that they have to be near you. It just says they have to hit you with CC. So there's lots of things in the game that can apply CC at range. and it would do the same thing to them. Freeze them, put them, like, daze them, right? Stun them, etc. And then when it happens, it's also going to do the same thing to all other enemies. It doesn't say how many. Oh, to the same enemy and enemies around you. So you can proc it in two locations: the enemy who does it, whether they're in close or distant range, and enemies around you. But it doesn't say how many enemies, what the range of that is, or anything. I wish it did. Like, that'd be nice. But otherwise, it sounds really good. And now, Omni Power. Wrathful. Super World Tier 4. Core skills that launch a projectile consume all of your mana. For every 45 to 35 extra mana consumed, you launch an additional projectile and the damage is increased by 3 to 5%. So I don't know if this 3 to 5% is stacking. Like, every extra projectile gets an additional 3 to 5% on top of what the previous one did. I think that's what this is saying. Additionally, it's saying it's consuming mana. Obviously, you want the 35 extra mana consumed instead of... Right, basically what this would allow you to do is cast, like... Now, which skills are considered exactly projectiles? I'm personally not 100% sure, but I imagine, like, lightning bolts, charge bolts, fireballs, etc. Or, hell, maybe even meteor is considered a projectile. Imagine that'd be crazy. Have freaking... I don't know how much, but I don't know if meteor is a spell that costs mana, or if it does, if it's also on cooldown. If it's on cooldown, but it still costs mana, as my brother has told me some cooldown skills do for sorcerer. I guess that's one thing druid kind of has on sorcerer, right? Is their cooldowns don't cost spirit. Instead, it's just a cooldown. So at least they have that. Anyways, basically you could, like, press fireball once and it will consume all your mana, but it could, depending on how much mana you have, you would want to obviously stack maximum mana as much as possible, right? And then you could cast a whole bunch of fireballs or maybe a bunch of meteors, right? So let me check this out. Diablo 4 builds. Let's go to max roll, just because I want to see. Let's go D4 planner. Let's pick sorcerer, skill tree, and so there's incinerate. So fireball is projectile. Frozen orb would probably be considered a projectile. Definitely ice shards. I think ice shards are going to benefit hugely from this. Chain lightning is probably a projectile. Charge bolts, definitely. Let's see. Flame shield, teleport, ice armor, frost nova, nope. Hydra. I wonder if this, because it fires projectiles itself, if it would summon a bunch of hydras, because they fire projectiles. Right? And that's what it says. It says you launch an additional projectile. So maybe that works with hydras. I don't know. Ice blades, I don't think they're considered. Lightning spear might be considered a projectile, so you might conjure additional lightning spears for freaking for if it's 6 seconds. Imagine having 5, 10, whatever lightning spears ripping around on the screen just from casting one. You burn all your mana, but it might be worth it. And then let's see, meteor. So it does cost mana, and it's not. So if meteor is considered a projectile with this will require testing. It costs 40 mana, and it says for every 35 to 45 mana. So I don't know. You could get a lot. Maybe you could get a whole shit ton of meteors. Just have them raining from the sky, almost like bombardment for the Crusader in Diablo 3 or something, right? That sounds fun. So, developer's note. Caged hearts cannot be traded between players because we want hearts to feel like an achievement for slaying challenging malignant monsters. However, jewelry containing malignant sockets can be traded to ensure that there are multiple sources for jewelry with malignant sockets that correspond to the caged hearts players have earned. So, jewelry containing sockets, but not the gems. So you could get it, you can take, because it's a rare, right? You can take the rare, you can normally trade rares, so it's good that they clarified that, because all jewelry comes with solely malignant sockets that during the season you can't get regular ones, so you can't even put regular gems in those. So bye bye skulls, etc. Okay, now let's check out the malignant tunnels. What it says. One of the best places to acquire malignant hearts are in the new malignant tunnels. Highly replayable dungeons, that's debatable, with teeming with fearsome foes to eradicate. While inside, you'll need to risk life and limb to defeat feral malignant monsters while navigating this dank system of tunnels. In total, there are 6 dungeons spread across Sanctuary that make up the Malignant Tunnel system. After putting mobs of malignant monsters down, you'll come across 2 outgrowths. One will always be Wrathful, and the other will be a different heart type depending on the dungeon. Oh, so one will always be Wrathful. Ooh. That's because probably you can't craft Wrathful. Because you can't craft Wrathful, it's good because this will ensure that you can get a steady source of Wrathful ones as you're upgrading, right? And one will be a different heart depending on the type of dungeon. So is it a brutal one, a vicious one, whatever, right? Using Malignant Invokers, a special item crafted at Corman's Wagon, players can interact with outgrowths of the same type, causing them to summon a fully corrupted enemy. If you can overcome the summoned foe, you receive a Malignant Heart that matches the monster's type. So basically, whichever one of these outgrowths you click on, that's what the malignant enemy will be. It'll pop out, you fight it. You don't have to do the ritual to kill it, then activate the malignant heart, then fight it again. It just comes out as a fully malignant enemy. And it's similar to sigils. You craft an item that allows you to interact with the malignant outgrowths. Right, so, and that's the Malignant Invokers. And then it says, confront Varshan the Consumed. Rooting out the source of malignant monsters with Cormand will see you going toe-to-toe against Varshan the Consumed, the newest boss battle. Varshan weaponizes his hatred in the form of malicious blasts, hurls globs of corruption at enemies, and stabs and swipes with his meaty tendrils to eviscerate even the hardiest of adventurers or wanderers. So, and then there's of course how seasonal character. This will be the last thing I go over because there's let's see. Seasonal characters, rewards, acquire hellish new looks with the shop. Yeah, I don't care about that. I'll just go over the seasonal stuff real quick just to reiterate for people. So, basically, here's what you get at season start, depending on what you've done. If you've beat the campaign, you have the option to skip the campaign when you create a seasonal character. Your mount is immediately available if you unlocked it. All previously discovered altars of Lilith and the corresponding renown, along with the entirety of all your revealed map areas and the corresponding renown for that as well, are granted to you. I've actually done a calculation for this, so I know how much you actually have available, and I can actually bring that up right now. So give me 1 second here. I will, just to show you. I just gotta find the thingamabobber for it. Here we go. Okay, just to give anybody watching an example of what to expect. So I'll swap over to this real quick. We will zoom in. Right, so for Fractured Peaks, when you start, this is if you've unlocked all altars, all of the map, etc. Plus, you get to start with an additional, with some extra renown. This is going to be changed. This is going to be more like, because the increase of side quests has increased and dungeons. Okay, yeah, but waypoints and stuff happen. So, you need to complete Fractured Peaks. If you've completed everything previously, or in preseason, you need 220 total to get to your second skill point. That's what this is. Fractured Peaks, Skosglen, etc. This is solely to get the, and I'll type in here, needed for second skill point. There. So yeah, for the second skill point in each zone. So you need 220 in Fractured Peaks, and I've recommended doing 2 strongholds and 1 waypoint. In Scotland, you need 190 total, so you need, I would just get all the waypoints for 160, and then do 4 dungeons for 120. Wait, is that correct? 160? You only need 190. 1, 2, that's a bit incorrect. Maybe it's like 3 or whatever. Something like that. Dry Steps, you need 295, so I've recommended doing 1 stronghold, 3 dungeons, and 6 waypoints. And then for Kyrgyzstan, 300 total, so you can just do the 3 strongholds there when you're ready to go there. And then Hawazar, 240, 2 strongholds, and 2 waypoints, and you're good to go. All right, that's what you get there. So back over to here. Okay. So, once the season has ended, your character, yada yada, becomes non-seasonal, goes back to the Eternal Realm, and all items, excluding season-specific things, so that's the Malignant Hearts, and craftable items, form, etc., all go back, except for those. All the Malignant stuff, you don't get to take that. Starts, and all this, except for the Malignant stuff, is available right now as of the 18th. And then our beliefs behind seasons. Seasons provide us with an opportunity to introduce innovative gameplay mechanics into Sanctuary for a limited time. Because seasons reset, we can create crazy fun season themes without needing to worry about balancing it with the mechanics introduced in past or future seasons. We start from a strong Eternal Realm baseline and build on top of it. Seasons are also a place for players to explore and tinker. We encourage you to try a new class or so this is something they've talked about before. Seasons are also a place for players to explore and tinker. We encourage you to try a new class or different builds for a class you've grown fond of. Our seasons are a chance to get creative. And I will say this, you're only able to get as creative as whatever's in the game, right? I can guarantee you within a few days of season 1 start, maybe even before that, people are already going to have a bunch of crazy ideas for builds or incorporating these Malignant Hearts into builds. Same with the legendary aspects that are available and the uniques and stuff, right? That'll be available probably within like probably tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised. Tomorrow or the next day. By season release for sure. And of course, for some time after that, people will be talking about that as well. But you're only as creative as the things that are available, right? Additionally, seasons present an equal playing field. This is true. Everybody starts out at level 1. However, be forewarned, if you're a new character, if you haven't played the game much, and you don't understand the systems very well, you're at a disadvantage. Knowledge is power. I'm not necessarily saying that in a bad way, but like it's not an even playing field exactly. Me, having 400 plus hours in the game, understanding the systems, etc., in the game, I have a massive advantage. I know how to level quicker. I know what to ignore, what not to ignore, things like that for the most part. To get what I need to get done. For instance, to get the second skill point for each zone or for each region, to get up to my Paragon points for level 50. I'll probably be able to get those before I hit 50. That, if I can, that will be freaking fantastic. We'll see what happens. We'll see how easily you can grind that out, especially since they've given a bit more renown for side quests and dungeons, which is great. Our seasons are designed for new characters to conquer the nightmarish challenges brought on by a season's theme and to progress through the seasonal journey together. Yeah, maybe they should have incorporated the season into the campaign. Right? Whether you've completed the campaign or not, be able to access it. The fact that you can't, I think that's a problem. I don't see a reason why they couldn't have just said instead that instead of the Malignant arising after Lilith is defeated or whatever, and that's when they get their chance or whatever, why not happen during the campaign? Like as part of the season. right? So you can go off to do the seasonal stuff while you're in the middle of doing the campaign. That way, people who haven't completed the campaign can say, maybe they would say then, oh, this is worthwhile for me to make a new character despite having not completed the campaign because I can still partake in the season theme. You can't, though. So, unfortunately, that's how it is. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will leave you to it. Tomorrow, I'll have a live stream up and going for some more D4 action. I'm going to try and find some of those new legendary aspects and uniques that are in the game. I'm not worried about the Ubers because they might as well not freaking exist. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the content. Have a good night, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.